Hi everyone, it's Katie from Chords Records. Last weekend I went to a record fair in inner city Sydney, in a suburb called Croydon, and it was an invite-only record fair in that the sellers had to be invited. It wasn't just like a pay-as-you-go sort of scenario. And it was called Topshelf Record Fair, and the kind of concept behind it, it's been going for 3 years, is that it's everyone, all the kind of record sellers and the dealers bring their best top shelf records. So they're sort of their holy grails, their holy moly walls, etc. So the hall was full of absolute heat. It was amazing. And I'll talk a bit about, what I loved about it and also my small disappointment by the end of it. But I got a great record haul.
Right, it's pretty cold. It's very early in the morning and I'm off to the Top Shelf Record Fair, which is an amazing record fair, happens once a year in Sydney.
And I want to take you through some of the records I picked up. And the first one, which just blew me away. At first, it was a bit of a disappointment because I thought Nick Drake, Bridal Later, I understood it to be a first edition Australian press, 1971. And it was at a really great price. And I just thought, I've got to pick this up. And I wasn't paying attention. And I should have known, because if you know the presses of Bridal Later, you'll know that this is not the first press. The first presses all came on a pink label, the Pink Island label, and that's how you recognize them. And this is obviously not pink, it's blue. However, I don't know if you can see how clean that is. When I put this on the turntable, it didn't even fit the spindle, and I think it might be mint. It's almost never been played. Like, it has nowhere, not a scratch on it, clean as anything. And it was a 1978 Australian. And it's the best sounding version of this album I have ever heard. So zero regrets. The record, importantly, is in top condition, but so is the actual sleeve. Very, very happy with that. So I don't know if anyone else knows about the Australian press, the reissue in 1978. I've got the UK 1976 one, which this one beats. So it just sounds amazing. And on my Sensui amp, I don't know if you can see it there, it just sounds beautiful. Fun fact about this album cover, it was photographed by a guy called Nigel Weymouth. And I've always struggled with it because I used to be a photographer and I appreciated the photograph for its moodiness, and but it's not the best quality. And they're obviously the subtle kind of look of his face, just in that kind of buried shadow light. But it's iconic, the actual design of the cover, and it was designed and photographed by the same guy, so the whole package. And so Nigel Weymouth, he also photographed that iconic debut album by America, you know, where the band is sitting in front of the little bighorn prisoners, those Native Americans behind them. They're sitting in front of that vintage photograph. So same photographer. Fun fact. The next album I got, I was thrilled, and I've never seen it in the wild. And it turned out at the Topshelf Record Fair, I saw 2 copies that day. So Fanny, who are Fanny? I'll just show you. That's Fanny there. Fanny were a super interesting group coming out of the early 1970s in America. They were sort of pioneers of the girl group riot, the riot girl group movement in America. But they were like pioneers. 1969, 1970, really the first big girl rock group in America to be signed to a major label, which was Reprise. And this was their debut album. They went on to do about 5 albums. 2 sisters, originally from the Philippines, moved to California when they were teenagers. And they could all play instruments. They were absolutely brilliant. And it stands up. This album is fantastic. Probably a little bit poppy for today's tastes. But at the time, it would have been revolutionary, really. And it was the actual album cover is in great condition. This is the Australian press. Very happy to have picked that up. I collect female rock, psych rock, folk psych from the late 60s, early 70s. And I have amassed quite the collection. And that is one of my disappointments about this Top Shelf Record Fair is, one, there were hardly any women there. Shout out to Jenny. I met her. Hardly any. And there were no women dealers. It was all male dealers. And the records, there were almost no female representation. And, you know, they're half the population. They made some great music. But at this kind of fair, you're not going to see like Bonnie Raitt or Emmylou Harris. Obviously they consider that they don't sell, and they don't consider them top shelf, which I think's a travesty. Just putting it out there. I'll get off my soapbox. All right. So yes, as I said, on the Reprise label, again, Australian press, very, very, very happy to have picked that up. Okay, the next 2 albums, iconic Australian album. Were they the biggest Australian band in the 1960s? The first big Australian band to get international success. And you probably have guessed it, the Easybeats. Now, the Easybeats are a really interesting band for me. I know a couple of their hits, like Friday on My Mind. I know their pedigree, but I had no albums by them. And if you've watched my channel for enough, you know that I am slowly trying to educate myself about early Australian rock music, largely with the help of a couple of local record store dealers, Paul from Velvet Fog and Pete from Mobile Fog, who is always giving me the hot tips when I see him. And the Top Shelf Record Fair was no exception. They had told me about the record fair, so I went. They were both there doing at their respective respective areas and right next to each other. And I asked them both, what is the best Easybeats album I should get? What is the best one that they consider that they ever put out? And they both said and arrived at the same conclusion, Volume 3. And Peter had a Volume 3 in his shelves. And it is in great condition. It's like, honestly, look at this. There's hardly any little bit of wear on the flips here, but the actual cover itself is in absolutely beautiful condition. I've listened to the entire thing, and it is just fantastic, and it sounds fantastic. So I was very happy with that. Look at them. Weren't they gorgeous, these young men? So, I mean, I'm sure you all know who the Easybeats are, but they were, they came out of the kind of the British invasion. They were actually multicultural. They all came from different parts of the world, but they landed in Australia and they formed this rock group. And Stevie Wright was one of the key, the lead singer. He went on to have a solo career with a song called Evie, and his solo stuff is stunning. But the Easybeats, the two of the members, which were Vanda and Young. So George Young, whose younger brothers went on to form AC/DC, Angus and Malcolm. But Vanda and Young went on to form Albert Productions record label. So the DNA in this group that has lasted and formed Australian rock history is phenomenal, and I can't believe I didn't have an album. So I'm so happy that I now own a beautiful copy of Easybeats Volume 3. Look at this. It is so beautiful. And then I got carried away, and in my excitement, Peter showed me this album. And why is this one special? It's a little bit tatty, and it's got names written on the base there, but it is signed by the entire band, including the young Vanda and Young, Little Stevie as he was known, Snowy, who was one of the band members. So signed by the whole band. And in fact, you probably won't be able to see it, also in pencil. If I get the shine right, you're not going to be able to see it. Also in pencil on the cover, they've signed it. So I'm super, that was purely just I need to get that fun little kind of archive piece for my collection. Right, completely changing direction here, but still staying within the Antipodean part of the world. I absolutely love Flying Nun music. I have said many times I grew up in the 80s in New Zealand. I'm half New Zealand, half Australian. And I used to sneak out and sneak into a Auckland live music venue called the Glue Pot. And I photographed hundreds of bands when I was a teenager, underage, and the security used to let me in. So I've got thousands of negatives of these sort of formative bands of the 80s. And I am sure I photographed the Straight Jacket Fits and their iconic album Hail, absolutely brilliant. And I lost all my records over the years, and I'm slowly buying back all my Flying Nun. And Straight Jacket Fits, huge hit out of the Dunedin scene, and this one was there, and now you're paying a fortune for them, unfortunately, but it is what it is. And this was a beautiful copy, so I picked that up on obviously the Flying Nun label. So I'm just, as I see, I could get them on Discogs, but I'm just, as I see them in the wild, I'm picking them up because that's the fun of collecting. And this album has stood the test of time. Give it a stream. It has really stood up. And so when was it made? In 1988. So what are we talking, almost 40 years ago? And it really stands up today in today's modern kind of music. Really brilliant. And I also was kindly given by Peter Headless Chickens, another Flying Nun label family member. This was 1989, so a little bit later. And this was just a 7-inch, which is also on the actual Flying Nun label. So thanks for that, Peter. Appreciate it. All right, now we're completely moving genres here. So you can see I'm spending a lot of money at this Top Shelf Record Fair. There were just so many fantastic, not just great albums, but they were all in tip-top condition. And this one was no exception. This is one of the reasons I bought this. I mean, I know the drummers, Philly Joe Jones and Elvin Jones. They're not related. Philly Joe Jones was the drummer in Miles Davis Quintet during the late 50s, early 60s, and Elvin Jones was in John Coltrane's quartet. And they did one album together where they came together and they actually recorded music together, and they shared the drumming duties, and they would kind of sort of integrate into each other. It's a really brilliant album, and the level of musicians on this is amazing. It's not often talked about in the vinyl community, and I wonder why. Can you put in the comments if you're a jazz aficionado? Tell me what you think about this album. I found this is a mono Australian Atlantic on the Atlantic label, and a really beautiful condition, as I said. But the players on here, Philly Joe Jones and Elvin Jones, as I've said, on drums, Hank Mobley on tenor sax, Blue Mitchell on trumpet, Curtis Fuller on trombone, Wynton Kelly on piano, and Paul Chambers on bass. What a lineup. And it is so great. It's toe tapping as you'd expect. There's only 3 songs on the entire thing. Leroy goes for 6 minutes. Beauty goes for 12 minutes 53. That's side 1. And side 2 is 1 song, Brown Sugar, and that goes for almost 15 minutes. So that's Philly Joe Jones and Elvin Jones together on Atlantic. What is it? Atlantic 1428. 1964, that album came out, and it's an original mono. Okay, now we're moving to the 80s British pop new wave era, which is one of my favorite genres of music. Again, got rid of all my albums, slowly getting them back. My sister was really influential in this kind of area, and particularly with this album. She was a huge House Mountains fan. House Mountains out of Hull had that iconic hit Caravan of Love, but were really sort of political and were underrated, and that was her favorite band of the 80s. And of course, out of the ashes of the House Mountains came the Beautiful South, which is an underrated band from the 80s and 90s, in my opinion. And I saw this super cheap at the Top Shelf Record Fair. It was an EP, Song for Whoever, and the B-side, Straight In at 37, and You and Your Bright Ideas, from 1989. They only formed in 1988, I think. And so I picked it up, and this is on London. So just an addition to my slowly collecting that back. And again, this is my second copy of this. This is The Jam, the bitterest pill I've ever had to swallow. Oh, Paul Weller's voice. Oh my goodness. He went on obviously to form the Style Council, but the sound of his voice on this album immediately pulls you straight back to that era in a kind of almost a Proustian moment. And as I said, I've got 2 copies of this, and so I'll probably get rid of my other one because I've compared them. This one is in such great condition. And then sort of aligned the 12-inch of Love Will Tear Us Apart by Joy Division. Another stunning, this is a Porky cut in the Dead Wax version. Very happy to have picked this up. OG. I might put an image of the Dead Wax here. Beautiful, beautiful condition. Hasn't been DJ'd or anything. Right, moving into the last couple or 3. This is a Desert Island album for me. I'm always searching for a perfect copy of it. This isn't it, but I had never purchased a original. And I saw this at a pretty good price. Donny Hathaway's album on Atco. It's a US original, and I picked it up just to have an original, but it's a bit crackly. I'll always keep it in my collection because it is an original, but I think I'll need another copy to play, because it sounds pretty good. Like, it's playable, and it's definitely, it sounds warm and beautiful, and particularly if you turn it up loud, you don't even really notice the crackles. But on a song like A Song for You, where there are some beautiful quiet moments in that song, you need a really quiet version of this album. So I'll probably not play this too often, but very happy to have a original in my, as I said, on the Atco label, in my collection. What an artist, honestly. That would be a desert island album for me. As with this one, how many copies of this do I have? I think I have about 8. Don't judge me. I don't want anything in the comments unless it's kind and thoughtful. Again, similar story. I have so many copies of this. I have never in Australia found one of these at a reasonable price of an original US copy in the wild. For all of those of you who are watching in America, you probably see them all the time, but we don't see them all the time here at a reasonable price. And this was in pretty good nick, and it was OG, and it sounds pretty good. I've got a really interesting copy of this, which is a Classic Records 1994 remastered version, test pressing, which was never released. I won it at an auction, and I compared it to this one. I compared it to the original. It's quite different. The original is beautiful. Like, you really can't go past it. But I have all the reissues. I've got and I've got Australian presses, original Australian presses. I've got a couple of them. But very happy to have this on Reprise, as we all know. The good old Reprise label. Did they have the best artists? I'm pretty sure they did. And then just a bit of fun. I collect science fiction soundtracks, mainly for the covers, sometimes for the music, because the orchestral music is amazing. If you follow my channel enough, I think I might have even done a video of it a while back. But if I see something in the wild that's cheap and is fun, I'll pick it up. It's just a really nonsense sort of subgenre that I collect. And this one was there fairly cheaply, and it's actually a storybook children's album for the original Flash Gordon. Look at that cover, honestly. The Official Adventures of Flash Gordon, starring Buster Crabbe, and it literally is it is a storytelling book, but it's in pretty beautiful condition, and it's the gorgeous covers on these that I like. So and that was on a label called Metro. And I also got a Star Trek the Final Frontier Volume 5 to finish my Star Trek collection. All right, that is my record haul from the Top Shelf Record Fair. Hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next video. Oh, if I could ask you to like and subscribe, I'd appreciate it. Bye.